Hi everyone, and welcome to the first session of qualitative data analysis training that is being delivered as part of the learning within the Watson and Meter project. After being introduced to the main principles of qualitative research and the different types of qualitative research methods in the previous set of training videos by Dana, this next set of videos will focus specifically on the analysis of qualitative data by thinking about how we can approach qualitative data analysis and how we can ensure that it is of high quality while still being as insightful and as in-depth as possible. So just before we start, I'll briefly introduce myself first. So I'm Dr Gillian Waller. I'm a research associate at Teesside University in the northeast of England. My research background has mainly focused around public health research, specifically substance use in young people. And I completed my PhD a few years ago, which focused around implementation science as I looked to explore the factors affecting the implementation of substance use interventions within secondary schools. My primary research method experience is largely qualitative, as I've undertaken lots of one-to-one interviews, motivational interviews and also focus groups, and I've also been involved with lots of qualitative data analysis. As part of my current role at Teesside, I'm one of the researchers working on the Watson and Meter project, so I'll be specifically responsible for doing the work, the qualitative work, which will be conducted around, as part of work package 3, looking to explore the use and the impact of metering technologies with individuals living in different areas of Mumbai, India. So I can rely on my previous experience of using normalization process theory, or NPT for short, which is an implementation theory to help analyse the qualitative interview data that we obtain, as it will help assess the current implementation and access to metering technologies, and also allow us to make future recommendations. So the qualitative data analysis training, I've broken it down into 3 sort of shorter sessions just to make it a bit easier. So you can choose to watch them all at once, or you can dip in and out of them however you fancy. But just to give a brief overview of the 3 sessions, this first session is going to focus on just introducing the principles of qualitative data analysis. So thinking about how we set about analysing qualitative data, and it'll briefly touch upon some of the different methods that have been developed to analyse qualitative data across different contexts. The second session will concentrate specifically on thematic analysis, and this is because thematic analysis is the method that we will be using for the qualitative interview data within the Watson and Meter project. So therefore it's going to act as this mini how-to guide with the aim to developing your understanding around thematic analysis, enough to support and participate with the analysis in the project. And the final session is going to focus on just discussing the sort of strengths of thematic analysis, whilst also thinking about some of the limitations and how we can overcome these in practice. So, starting with the first session, how can we analyse qualitative data? So this session, it's just going to be a brief kind of whistle-stop tour, with the main learning outcomes being the introduction of the importance of qualitative data analysis, and how the different desired outcomes of qualitative data analysis can affect the method chosen. So I'm briefly going to talk about some of the different qualitative data analysis methods, and this will set us up nicely for the focus of session 2 on thematic analysis. So, qualitative data analysis, where to start? So the analysis of qualitative data isn't always as straightforward or as clear-cut as you'd like it to be, especially if you're comparing it to some of the more standardised methods of analysis using quantitative research. And sometimes it can just be difficult, just knowing where to start and what method to choose. So where do you start when there's this broad range of different approaches to analysis associated with qualitative research? So primarily, and probably saying the obvious a bit here, is saying that the choice of how you analyse your qualitative data is largely dependent on the research that you're conducting. So the overall aims of that research and basically what you're trying to find out. So to give you an example of this, if the aim of your research is to give a wide-ranging voice to your participants as a whole, maybe by presenting an overview or a shared combined view of the experiences, the analysis of the qualitative data is likely to focus around first making sense of the different participant responses, arranging them, and just sort of thinking about how to group together similar experiences in a novel way. Whereas if the aim of your qualitative data collection is to allow participants to speak for themselves on a particular topic, so you're getting kind of responses that are unique to a specific participant, the data analysis process may be more minimal, and instead it'll sort of focus around tidying up the raw data to be used and presented as an outcome. So the most useful starting point to select or plan your qualitative data analysis is to really think about the aims of your research, as they're really going to influence the style of analysis that's conducted. So thinking about what do you want to find out, what am I trying to achieve by conducting this research, what outcomes am I trying to achieve, and basically just by being really clear and understanding what you want to find out, it largely influences the choice of analysis method. So I've just taken these bullet points here listed on the slide from the methods textbook by Green and Thorogood, which is a really good source of information for anyone who wants a more in-depth explanation on anything that has been covered in like the previous sessions or these particular sessions. And I found it a really useful textbook as an introduction to qualitative methods whilst doing my PhD. So I definitely recommend it for further reading. But anyway, looking at these bullet points, I think they cover the key examples of the different outcomes that can be achieved by conducting a qualitative analysis really well. So first off, are you looking to develop a conceptual definition or definitions for a new or pre-existing practice or system? Are you wanting to develop an ordering system or a classification system which may aid future research or practice? Are you looking to explore different associations that exist between participants' attitudes, behaviours and experiences? And this is exactly what the qualitative work and the What's in a Meter project is looking to achieve, as work package 3 specifically is looking to explore the different experiences and attitudes of residents across different areas, about their current access and use of metering in the area, whilst work package 2 will use a qualitative approach to reflect upon the experiences and the broader challenges experienced by the policymakers and stakeholders in relation to metering and the rollout of technology. So the primary goal of these work packages is to explore the associations between attitudes, behaviours and experiences. But qualitative work can also be used to develop explanations of, again, a novel or pre-existing, or just maybe one that needs developing phenomena, or it can be used to generate new ideas, theories. So all of these can be seen as important outcomes of qualitative research. So your research might be focusing on achieving all of these, one of these, a combination of these, but whatever you're trying to find out, ultimately it would affect the choice of qualitative analysis method that is used. So what are the different analysis methods that can be used to analyse qualitative data? So it is often common for qualitative analysis to rely on a mixture of different analysis approaches, or have an overlap of different approaches in order to satisfy the needs of a particular study. And although the different analysis methods generally have a recognised way of doing them, they're also highly flexible and iterative, and this is mainly to complement the nature of qualitative research and hence the qualitative data that's being analysed. So within social sciences research, there are different and distinct analysis methods that are commonly used. So for the remainder of this session, I'm going to quickly touch upon some of the key features of the different methods, which will lead us nicely into section 2, which is going to focus on thematic analysis. So starting with grounded theory. So grounded theory was first developed by theorists Glaser and Strauss back in 1967, and it has continued to be used for qualitative data analysis since. Grounded theory, it's largely an iterative process, as the researcher or the individual who's carrying out the analysis becomes more and more acquainted in the data, and you can develop these increasingly richer concepts and models of how the phenomenon that has been studied works, and it is most commonly used when aiming to develop a theory. So just briefly, the analysis process starts with really looking at your transcribed qualitative data and making sense of what you have. Then from this, you can start an open coding process in order to identify potential themes. So I'll define coding and talk about it in more detail when we get onto thematic analysis in session 2. But it is a really key component of other qualitative data analysis methods. So just in a nutshell, open coding refers to the labelling of different concepts in order to develop specific categories based on their properties. So often when grounded theorists develop their concepts and categories, they decide to collect more data or even conduct the analysis whilst still undertaking data collection. And it tends to be this very sort of iterative process. And as the coding categories emerge, they can then be linked to theoretical models. So, for example, the sort of when, why, and under what conditions do these themes occur in the text. So, which is often identified as the constant comparison model. Once a model starts to take shape, the analysis can then present the categories and relationships among them, which involves checking the models against the data, especially in negative cases. So it's generally a useful sort of flexible data analysis method to employ. However, at times it can produce large amounts of data, requiring sort of good data management and a good existing knowledge of grounded theory methods. So moving on to the next one on the list, framework analysis. Framework analysis has been used since the 1980s, and it does sit within this broad family of analysis methods, often termed as thematic analysis or qualitative content analysis. But similarly, it identifies the commonalities and differences across qualitative data before focusing on relationships between different parts of the data to seek and draw descriptive and or sort of explanatory conclusions clustered around themes. So framework analysis as defining feature is the matrix output that's used for the data. So they generally sort of consist of rows for the cases, columns for the codes, and then these cells contain the summarised data, which it's quite nice because it ultimately provides this structure into which you can systematically reduce your data in order to be able to analyse it by case and code. Narrative analysis or narrative inquiry, as it's the data collection method is often known as. It is an approach to analysis whereby the researcher analyses the stories that participants create. So narrative analysis can be really useful for us to understand how people are representing themselves or their experiences to themselves or to others. So it involves organising the qualitative data to separate irrelevant or redundant information, sometimes referred to as like narrative smoothing, and it is then able to be interpreted. And this generally involves employing a theory or a paradigm, for example, positivist, constructivist, or feminist, and things like that. But the unique feature of a narrative analysis is that the data interpretation is often seen as co-created by not only the sort of researcher or the data collector, but also with working with the participant, as the researcher uses the interpretation given by the interviewee whilst also constructing their own meaning from the narrative. And finally, thematic analysis, which is one of the most commonly used qualitative data analysis methods within social science research. And it's also like I mentioned previously, it's the analysis method that will be employed for the data analysis in the What's in a Meter project. So I'm going to spend session 2 introducing the method and offering like a how-to kind of guide. So that's coming up in the next session. So just to finish off and to conclude session number 1 of the qualitative analysis training series, we can confirm that I've talked about the importance of really understanding the outcomes of your qualitative data in order to influence the choice of method, for your qualitative data analysis. I've talked briefly about some of the different qualitative data analysis methods that are available, and I'll point you in the direction of some examples of further reading in the next slide. So if you do want to get any more information or any guidance about some of the different methods, then you can. And this has set us up nicely for session 2, which is going to focus on thematic analysis. So these are just the examples of further reading. The first 3 that I found really useful when undertaking any sort of qualitative research and executing are like 3 textbooks, and they're really, really like useful. I've written there the most recent version's 2018 because my version's a bit of an outdated version now, so that's the most recent version there. And then the final one is just a good reference about the normalisation process theory, which I talked about very, very briefly, but some of the references are a bit scary, so that's quite a good starting point if you want any more information about that. So finally, the links for the next 2 sessions. Session 2 will focus on the principles of thematic analysis, and session 3 is going to focus on exploring the strengths and limitations of thematic data analysis. So thank you.